Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Freshly Pressed. This is your host, Saurabh. And today we have with us Sam Willis of Raise Comics. Hi, Sam. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing great, doing great. So let's get right into it.
hmm
Um, my first question usually is, what got you into comics? What's your background? What's your history?
So I originally got into comics because I've been a long time nerd for a while. My actual first like I wouldn't say comic book, but I had like the Avengers coloring book when I was about 5 or 6, and that was kind of like the entryway into comics. Because shortly after that, started watching cartoons and then getting into comic books and just really exploring that avenue. I've been Marvel and DC fan for a very long time, and that kind of, I would say, streamlined me right into the comic book genre.
Right. Yeah, I think I love both equally as well. And it's not like,
Yeah.
I mean,
I like
end
a
up loving
I like a
characters,
good
right?
story, like whatever. I mean, whatever side of it is, as long as I get told a good story, that's really all I care about. You know.
Very, very true. Very, very true. And also, like, good story, good characters, great artwork. That's what you're after, mostly. Yeah.
When it all comes
Yeah,
together, that's when it really, really shows, and that's when you become a fan. You know what I mean? Um, I'm sure, like once you read that comic, that kind of sends you down the rabbit hole. Once you read, a really good comic.
absolutely, absolutely. So, how did you get into like writing comics?
Um, so So kind of wasn't intended that way. So I mean, me and my co-creator, we this was originally like supposed to be a video game back when we were in middle school. And we figured out that making a video game is very, very difficult. And you need like a giant team. Um and this was like back in the day. Like I've seen people make video games just by themselves now, but obviously technology back then wasn't as advanced as it is now. Um but we started writing this as a video game, and we kind of lean towards comics because we're a big fan of telling a really good story. And I think once we saw that we could do it, like realistically do it through the comic book medium, and it's something that we've both been a fan of for so long, it kind of just made like perfect sense to just kind of jump into the genre and try to tell it in a comic book form. um and yeah, we kind of went from there and just took an idea we had when we were in 7th grade to now what you guys see now in these issues. So
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
pretty cool stuff.
Uh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And both of you co-write it, or like, is your
Y-
creator like also like an artist or something?
yeah, so the first one he actually did, I want to say 80% of the art. He's a co-writer as well, so me and him, we pretty much wrote the whole story together, and each issue you see, it's a collaboration. So you know I, our partnership is kind of like, I'm the guy with the crazy ideas, and he's the guy who's like, what can we realistically do? Which you definitely
Yep,
need.
you definitely need it.
Um, and we kind of, it's a beautiful partnership because it's two different perspectives, but we both want the same thing, which is to tell a good story and to tell good characters and to do things that people necessarily haven't seen from the zombie genre. And that's kind
Mm,
of what we're leaning towards or shooting towards with every issue that we come out with.
that's awesome. At this point, I will segue into. I'll ask you to give a brief about what your comics is about. Take 2 to 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever
Yeah,
time you want, and just talk
absolutely.
about Rays.
Yeah. So Raise at its core is a character study. Um, Now the environment is around a zombie apocalypse. It's a little bit different though. Our zombies are different. They don't eat people necessarily. That's not how the infection spreads. It spreads by touch, and you really just you follow 8 survivors, 8 or 9 survivors. We thought it'd be cool to kind of have this giant group, because how dangerous this world is, you kind of need those numbers. Um,
Hmm.
And the way they come together on our comic is really like unique and like pretty much like it's just pushing people together that they know nothing about each other, and you kind of having these conflicting personalities, and they kind of just have to survive together, and they're kind of going through each issue of, you know, it's almost like, oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, what's going to happen next? Like things go from bad to worse to horrible to terrifying, and that's
Wow.
kind of where we take our comic. But yeah, I mean, we like to call ourselves a horror comic, but if people aren't necessarily fans of horror, we have action, we have drama, we have romance. So we kind of try to segue into these subgenres a lot, because
Yeah.
we don't want it to feel like, oh, if you're not a horror fan, you can't read this comic, you know? So.
No, absolutely not. I've read first 5 issues, so I know that it's not. Obviously, horror is a large part of it, and it's part of the
Mhm.
looming threat of like the zombie apocalypse, and it does tell a story which is much smaller than like a global apocalypse. Like it's not World War Z or something, right? It's
Yeah,
uh, yeah. So yeah, it tells a very like personal story of these characters, and I know for sure that you anyone who's not a fan of even zombie genre, a subgenre of horror, even they will actually enjoy this book a lot.
exactly. And I mean, it's funny because, you know, I've met a lot of like cool people on Twitter, you being one of the examples, and many, many creators out there. And, you know, I always hated is the zombie tropes, you know, because that's I feel like anytime you say zombies, you're getting this kind of almost like, if someone doesn't like that genre, you're getting this very rash reaction from them. And we wanted to kind of take that away, you know, like whatever you're a fan of, you can come and enjoy this good story, and it's got something for everyone. And that's how we've tried to push the story, you know, to really get out of just the horror aspect of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how did you come up with the idea of Raise?
It was so it was kind of like a what if question, and once we said the what if question, we kind of went down the rabbit hole, and then, you know, 15 years later, we're kind of putting this together as you know, an arc or a story. This is an ongoing series, so
Hmm.
we've been developing this for a long time, so we got a lot of story to tell and a lot of characters to go into and a lot of things to introduce that people necessarily haven't seen before. um and but yeah, I mean, it's just, it kind of just like grabbed us, and we're huge zombie fans, but we always talked about, like, me and my co-creator, like, I'm not really a fan of this, or I'm not really a fan of that, or I like this but I don't like that. And, you know, we always like said, like, if we were to do it, how would we do it, how would we make it different? And
Hmm.
that's kind of what we tried to find balance in. um
Hmm.
you know, like even the sense of, you know, this isn't a biting zombie, you know, like they're aggressive creatures that just try to grab you. And exploring how that works and exploring what that entails is something that I think would interest a lot of people. It's interested me just as a zombie fan, because then you start to try and figure out, oh, how does this thing work? Like,
Yeah.
what's the ins and outs of this infection?
Absolutely. That actually did help you in a big way because you tended to steer past the cliches a fair bit.
Yeah, that was the plan. But yeah, for sure.
No, that's amazing. Uh, can I ask what pop culture stuff it gets inspired from? I know a few, but I would
Oh
love for
yeah.
you to get into some of the pop culture stuff that it gets inspired from.
No, absolutely. A huge inspiration is definitely a video game we played nonstop, which was Left 4 Dead. And, you know, you're gonna see a lot of, I think, references and Easter eggs and things that we love about that
Yeah.
project. Obviously, big inspirations from, I would say, like Resident Evil, Dawn of the Dead. You know, I would even say too, like a lot of stories that are grounded. Like one of my personal favorites is the Raimi trilogy, Spider-Man. You know, like taking something
Mm,
that necessarily everyone knows, but giving it a grounded and realistic sensibility of the project.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we try to do with this. You're taking something that everyone knows, but you're doing it different, and you're trying to make it grounded and realistic. And that's kind of what we shoot, what we're shooting for. I would also say too is we Dragon Ball Z. We're going into the manga field, even though it's all the way in left field. That was like me and my co-creators like first anime / manga that we read and watched as kids. So big inspiration from that, and big inspiration on giving our style that manga feel that you obviously see in front of you.
Absolutely. I think that style gets a bit ramped up as the issues go along, right? Like, I think
correct.
That's what I also felt. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first one was actually done by an artist who gave it a glossy feeling, which I wouldn't say we're necessarily shooting for. We liked how it came out, but as we started to get, I'd say between issues 2 and 4, we started to kind of go old school comic, like the black and white, gray tones. And then, the 5th is really supposed to be the bridge to the manga style, because it took us a little bit of time, unfortunately, but we kind of figured out how we wanted to do this. And really the movement of characters is what drew us to the manga side of things. How dynamic it should feel, and I think how over the top our characters already are. It's just an easy bridge to that style.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think it will kind of suit the kind of story that you're telling. Especially, I think a lot of times in the first 5 issues, what I've seen is the story plods along really well, but then like with this manga panels, you do get somewhat of fast-paced action that you kind of need to move the story faster, and that's great. I think that I would love more of that as we go along.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been talking about that. I mean, the Kickstarter we're doing for 6, I mean, me and my buddy are blown away of what we're able to do in 6, because 6 was really supposed to be like this, like 5 was really action heavy, and 6 was supposed to be very character driven. And it is, don't get me wrong, but like, I think we've ramped up with action, and we've ramped up with like telling some things that people need to see again, and to really just tell an overarching story to make it fit. Because once we hit issue 7, not to get ahead of ourselves, that's when people are gonna be like, "Wow, this is different. This is not the zombie book I was expecting." So, but it's hard because, us as creators, we want to give you guys like 10 issues at a time, because we have this arc planned out. But you have to treat each issue like it's its own like movie or TV show, where you're trying to tell something in 3 acts, and you're trying to make it exciting in 3 acts, and you're trying to make it new and different. And sometimes that's hard, that takes rewrites, that takes, going back to the drawing board several times, you know what I mean? So I think this issue we probably rewrote, I want to say 5 or 6 times just to get it right. So,
well, as long as you get it right.
No, absolutely. And I believe we did. I believe that what people are going to see when they opt into our Kickstarter and get the physical copy, that it's going to be really exciting.
Nice. Because that was about to be my next question. Like, what's your process? Like, how far along do you plan your arcs and things like that? So
yeah. So we kind of had to take a new approach, because like we had like arcs planned like 20 issues at a time, and like, dude, like we got to cut it down a little bit so people can digest this in a good amount of time. And that's what I think you're going to see. Like, I want to say like 9 or 10 issues of Raise are kind of like the first arc. And me and my co-creator have talked about it. Is like, that's just like the intro to the series. It's really just like bringing you in very slowly. And then once we get past that point, things are going to start to move really quickly and really fast. And, and that's something we worked on, like even with like issue to issue, like, one thing that any creator out there, like, trying to find the right flow and trying to like tell a story in 24 pages where it's fast paced, it hits emotional notes, it has the action. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, you know, and
No.
you know, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of practice. And, you know, I think now being 6 issues in, I'm confident in our product and how much we've learned in that time frame too, you know? But
No,
yeah.
absolutely. And you can see how the product actually gets better with more and more issues as well. I think I can literally see the quality getting better and better every
Yeah.
time
Well,
I
we
read a new
appreciate
issue.
that. You know, it was hard because like issue 1, we had this mindset and we have so many characters like, oh, we need to show everybody in every panel, and it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's the cool thing too. I mean, that's something that we really pride ourselves on is each issue gives a different character limelight, and whatever the story is demanding is going to pull that character in. So like, you're not going to see your favorite character on every page, every single issue. But we do have these moments where you get characterization and you get development of who they are and where they come from or what they've been through, and that's something that
Mm,
we try to focus issue to issue. You know, so everyone gets a chance to have a voice.
nice. Yeah, I did like that, and in particular, like I've seen in a lot of like some of the especially in horror genre, like
Mm-hmm.
the female characters do get reduced to like scream queens. But I like in Rays especially, I found the characters to be really like really well fleshed out, well done. You know, like
Thank you.
I
That's one thing we pride ourselves on. We hated that too. We said if we were going to write female characters, they one, that we weren't going to use the sexual tropes. Two, we weren't going to just make them flat and two-dimensional characters. They needed, you know, like one of my. I mean, I was just looking at it because we're putting everything back to the Kickstarter. Is like, you know, having like we tried to bring up like having like a PTSD effect with one of the female characters in one of the issues
mm,
to really be like this is going to hit people different. Like, it's like if you see a murder in front of you, you might act different from your buddy. So it's like
yeah,
you have to take that into effect, and you have to take their personalities into effect. And just because they're a girl doesn't mean they're any different from a guy. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how we wrote them. You know, like they're a human being. How would they react? And
yeah,
really, their background and their traits that's going to tell you who they are. You know, whether
yeah,
they're angry, sad, happy, upset, whatever it is. You know, they kind of write themselves at a certain point.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's really good. And it kind of shows, right? Like obviously I figured it out. I think I'm sure others will figure it out as
Oh yeah.
well.
I mean, we try to not be as obvious, you know, like we want people also to think when they read our comic, but sometimes you kind of have to just like put it in front of someone and be like, "Hey, this is what it is." You know, this is
Yeah,
exactly what we're going for.
yeah, yeah. Nice. That's good. All right, another like little segue into
Hmm.
different kind of question, similar but different. What are the top 5 pop culture things that you love? Uh, Top
Currently,
5 is like
or just in general.
maybe your 5 greatest of all time.
Ooh. Greatest of all time. So, damn, that's a loaded question. That is a very loaded question. First one is definitely going to be the Raimi trilogy. If you can
Mm.
see on my arm, I just got my Spider-Man sleeve
Ooh,
continued yesterday.
that's
But
amazing.
so definitely that's up there. I would say, oh man, I got to put it up there just for the fight scenes, not for the story, because sometimes they make some weird choices, but definitely Dragon Ball Z is up there
Mm.
for me. I'm gonna put Demon Slayer up there too, even though the newer season's been kind of losing me a little bit, but I'm giving it a chance.
No, the
Um,
OG Demon Slayer slays completely.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
I want to say, hmm, Man, there's so many good ones. I'm going to get probably some slack for this, but this is like still one of my favorite superhero origin films by far is Man of Steel. Just like the writing, the sci-fi element, the soundtrack, everything about that. I probably watched that. I've watched that movie I think 3 or 4 times in the movie theaters.
Yeah.
So
Oh wow.
huge fan of that. And I would say, oh man, I would say 5 and 6. I'm going to give it 6 just because these are my two, I would say, Marvel films. 5,
Right.
I would say Infinity War because it had everything I think we're striving for. Big stakes, action, humor, drama, romance.
Yeah.
All those qualities done in a really, really amazing way. And then I'm going to go just because I take a lot of inspiration from it is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Like the over-the-top characters, the jokes, how it's constantly funny. It's lighthearted. We're not as lighthearted. We should be a little bit more lighthearted, but yeah, I definitely think I drew a lot of inspiration from that as well. I would say that's more recent though. All those things that I mentioned. If I would need more time for like an all-time of what I enjoy.
Yeah. No, that's all right. I mean, top 5 things that come to your mind, anyways, like the things that you think about the most, right? So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most of them are superheroes, so.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything controversial about liking Man of Steel as well. A lot of people actually do love Zack Snyder's movies, especially the just like the whole Justice League saga.
Oh yeah, so, but the thing is, I see on Twitter like everyone's fighting about it like almost every other day. So it's like I don't want to say something and then people start DMing me telling me I have bad opinions. Please don't do that.
Well, it's your personal opinions, and that's what matters, right?
Yeah, no, and everyone. So that's the thing I love about like when you create a story too, because you don't know, like even things that I've heard that I haven't loved from people have told me about Rays. It's like always interesting to see someone else's perspective because. In turn, that makes us want to be better. You know what I mean? Like as creators, like we try to take everything into effect and make a better story for the next person who maybe didn't like, and they're like, "Oh, that's really cool." You know what I mean? Like they took our criticism and they tried to rework their product. You know what I mean? We don't cater to all the haters, but it's good to get that negativity to try and be better. We're always trying to be better and always trying to evolve as creators, you know?
Absolutely. No, and criticism should be constructive, right? Like it should help you make your story better or like maybe your artwork better or whatever, like overall your book better. But yeah, just trashing things for the sake of it, it's not cool for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And everyone who's said like who's given me criticism, it hasn't been like malicious or anything. You know what I mean? It's been critical and it should be, you know, and that just helps us be better, you know.
Absolutely. Nice. So what are your plans with Race 6 to 10? Maybe like the first end of first story arc, like you said.
Yeah, so we're doing our Kickstarter thing, so we're on 6 right now. And last Kickstarter we had which was successful, and we were really happy about that. But the goal of pretty much, and I'm gonna call it the junkyard arc because that's kind of what it is, from issues 4 to I want to say 9 or 10, is really giving you a taste of everything. And that's what this first arc is. It's exactly what we talked about, where, you know, issue 1 was on the bridge, nonstop action and gore. Then issue 2, you get to meet these characters. Issues 3, you get more in depth with the characters. Issue 4, you have a very controversial idea and you see where the characters get pulled. 5, you have a very cat and mouse like feel. And then 6, you're going to have, it's pretty much the continuation of that chase and trying to find a little boy who's missing. But the problem is you're going to see us kind of break down this infection, and you're going to get to see some elements and some information that we're telling the audience about the infection to kind of,
Mm.
we're trying to cookie crumb trail the infection. We don't want to give away all our cards at once, but we're going to keep you engaged with it. We're going to teach you a few things about this infection, and we're also going to give you those character moments that I think people are going to appreciate.
Nice.
And it's gonna be one hell of a ride for 6. You know, all I can say is read till the end. Read till the end, because that's when it gets good. It's good throughout the whole thing, but my favorite is really the third act. So But and then we get to continue the junkyard arc in 7, 8, 9, and I want to say a little bit of 10.
Right.
And it's going to be real exciting because we get to explore some of these characters that people have been asking about a lot, and people want to know more about these characters, and it gives us the time, and it gives us, us putting the effort into making these characters feel engaged, and really seeing where, one thing we haven't really, not that it's a bad thing, but you should really do it in issue 1. And I'm at fault for it because we weren't thinking like this when we first created the series. Is I think the main overarching goal of this comic book series is going to take place in this arc, and it's really going to show you what this story is about. So that's something we're really excited about.
No, that's really amazing, and doing that with manga style.
You already know. No, it's. I mean, I'm incredibly excited for people to see what we have cooking up. And props, shout out to our new artist, Vin, and that's what you see from the wall banner. So he's killing it right now, and he's an incredible artist, and we're fortunate to work with him.
That's amazing. Just that promo banner right there is really cool. Yeah.
It's funny because it's like, it was kind of like a last ditch effort. We just like, hey, we should do this. And we're like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do that. And we send it to him, and he sends it back. I'm like, all right, we're going to add this, this, and this, and it's going to come all together. And seeing the final product, it's really cool. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is 6 going to be colored? Like, is there going to be like a different color edition, or?
No. So I can't give away some of the rewards because they're pretty cool, but we will have more news once we get a little bit closer towards our Kickstarter release date. But we are doing some really cool rewards and cool things that I think people are going to want to be involved with. Some really unique and exclusive things that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else besides Kickstarter. So that's gonna be the thing that we're leaning in towards, where we're kind of testing the waters with this one. Just because we have a lot of different ideas for this Kickstarter than we did for issue 5's Kickstarter. So more to come. I will say, as far as color goes, it's still going to be in the black and white with the gray tones, but you're going to see some really cool visuals and things that look like they're in color, because this artist is the way he's been able to paint these pages together has been nothing short of incredible.
Nice. I'm so looking forward to it now.
The same.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
excited.
Yeah. Have you what's the like top 5 movies / TV shows that you've seen around zombies?
So I haven't seen a whole lot of TV shows, because I know they've been coming out with like newer zombie TV shows, but I haven't watched them yet. Obviously Walking Dead's up there because that's pretty much like what segued everyone into zombies. Movies, I would say Dawn of the Dead for sure, which crazy. I did not know this. I actually found this out, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Zack Snyder directed that and James Gunn wrote it. Which,
wow.
I know why it's one of my favorites. As far as I'm
It
trying to
does
think of.
that beautiful one cut shot in the beginning. That's like,
Mm-hmm.
when that girl, she walks out of the her house and sees everything around her, like the whole like
Mm-hmm.
360-degree pan shot, that one shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's
Oh
really
yeah.
good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it starts really like, and that's, I mean, that's kind of like another thing we did, or another thing we took, not intentionally, but it's like starting it off like really insane and trying to explain it along the way. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
that's a style I really like. More just showing rather than telling,
yeah.
which is what you try to do with an audience. I want to say so. TVs and movies, zombie wise. I'm drawing blanks right now. I'm sorry. Shaun of the
I
Dead, I would say, is up there for the humor side of things. I'm a big humor guy. I want to say it's not really a zombie, but a really good movie, and it does kind of leak into the supernatural side, which zombies sometimes go into. Which is 30 Days of Night, just the way it was, and
mm,
just the way they did the characters and the environment, and kind of the environment is like almost like this snow globe effect where you can't leave. You're
yeah.
like stuck in your environment.
Mm.
um Man, what's another one? I want to
I
say
know.
too. I want to say
Sorry.
too is it's not really zombie either, but it does kind of have zombie like parallels. Is the Sam Raimi Evil Dead movie, like,
Mm.
just like the gore of that, the visuals of that, the
Oh,
characters not being, just two dimensional. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Even though
yeah,
they're all
yeah,
gonna like pretty much die, they're their own character, and they feel like their own character. Um,
yeah. No, I think the thing I love the most about all of Sam Raimi's work is it treads that beautiful line of like having a good characterization, having like really uh, deep characters, and having some really over the top stuff
oh
in in,
yeah.
in in those movies, right?
Hmm.
Like even with all the Spider-Man movies, it
Hmm.
just cuts randomly to an extra who's just giving their all, like just
Oh
shouting at the top of
yeah.
their voice or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean, dude, like Bully Maguire, that's still relevant,
Yeah.
and it's freaking like what, 15 years later, maybe longer. You know what I mean? So it's like, he likes to have fun too, and it's cool to see something like that, because usually like directors take themselves very seriously, but then when you see stuff
Yeah,
like over the top, you're like, okay, he's obviously
yeah,
having fun too. You know what I mean? And that's
absolutely.
that's the name of the game at the end of the day.
Cool. I think was some of I as I said, like I'm not the biggest fan of zombie genre, but I do love some of the movies I've seen in that. I think
Hmm.
28 days later is one
That's
of my
another one.
top. Yeah, it's really good. It's so atmospheric. It's so
Hmm.
like you're genuinely spooked by the setting, and and you haven't seen like zombies at all, like in the first like half an hour or so, like you don't see them at all, but it's still
Yeah.
like the whole looming threat of like, yeah.
Hmm.
It's crazy, it's so good. uh I actually saw a Japanese movie a
Hmm.
while back called One Cut of the Dead. I don't know if you have seen it.
No, I haven't.
Uh,
No.
it's amazing. It's kind of like, so it's a meta movie. So
Hmm.
it's a movie within a movie. They try to shoot a movie and they get attacked by zombies.
Gotcha.
And the whole it's so over the top because like they don't stop filming and they just keep shooting the movie
Oh,
again
okay.
while they're under a zombie attack. It's amazing. It's so well done. It's funny. It's bloody. It's gory. But yeah,
That's
it's a
awesome.
yeah, it's
That's
one good
so
time.
you just reminded me, because I want to throw Train to Busan in there. That's probably one of my favorite zombie movies by far. It's so
Yeah,
damn good. So
yeah,
damn good. I just totally like blanked, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, Train to Busan, like that's one of your favorite zombie movies, and you didn't even say it. Yeah, so I put that high on the scale as far as favorite zombie content I've probably seen in the last 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if you seen any of the Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead.
I haven't seen Army of the Dead, so now I have a little bit of time, so I've been kind of like going through the Netflix catalog. So um, it's just I've heard mixed reviews about it, so like I'm kind of going in with not the highest of expectations.
Well,
But I
haven't you
still
heard
want to
that
watch
about
it.
every Zack Snyder
Yeah,
movie?
yeah, yeah. I know. So it really doesn't matter. I got to kind of form my own opinion, but yeah, no, I've the only thing I get really disappointed when I watch a movie and I don't like the plot, or I'm like, why'd you do that? So like, I try to be selective, especially nowadays with like the media I'm indulging in, just because I don't want to sit here for 2.5 hours and get pissed off at the end of it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. And one thing I've also noticed, like because there's so much of content being produced, a lot of the content that we get is very cookie cutter, or like they just recycle a lot of stuff that's already out there.
Hmm.
So obviously, every now and then you get like something like White Lotus, or Raised by
Hmm.
Wolves, something that's really original, really well done. But a lot of times, like especially with Netflix, I've seen so many cookie cutter shows.
Oh yeah, I mean it's always the thing too, which I hate is like when you do that original idea and then like, yeah, we're gonna do 17 seasons of this, and I'm like, no, nobody asked for this. Literally nobody. It was perfect
Nobody.
the way it was, and it's just
Yeah,
like it's now you're beating it with a stick, and you don't need to.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like just let it be good and just move on. That's all you need
yeah.
to do. You know. But yeah.
Very, very true. Yeah, I think I felt the same. Like this was we saw a series like a few days ago. It's an it's Australian show. It's getting really
Hmm.
popular in the UK. I hope it gets popular in US as well. It's really well
Hmm.
done. It's called Colin from Accounts. It's a rom com, but it's really well done. So
Oh,
they've
okay.
like uh, they have followed all the tropes and all the regular rom com tropes, but they have turned it
Hmm.
on its head, and like it's really funny that way. Um, so you expect the show to do one thing and they do the other thing, kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
but like, yeah.
I was gonna say I mean, me and my co-creator, we just watched it was like this it was this horror movie from like Thailand. And it's called oh man. It was like so it wasn't the greatest. But it wasn't the greatest because like they did a lot of stuff but they didn't explain it. But like the ideas were really like cool and creepy.
Mm,
Um
mm,
and it was like very different, and um it's hard too because I think like when you watch something like that is like anyone who's like from the States and whatnot, I think it's sometimes hard to watch something from a different country because you don't understand certain things about like what's going on in the country, or like how they do their media, because it is very different. Like when we were
mm.
watching when we were watching the movie, they would just be like they would do flashbacks, but there was like it was hard to track the time of said flashbacks. Where like in certain movies, when you do a flashback, you're like, oh, it's very, very obvious this is a flashback. But because they did it so frequently, the timeline
Yeah,
kind of got like mixed up. You know what I mean? So, but it was still like a really cool idea. Like pretty much followed like this Asian woman, and it was like this weird symbol, and I guess like her daughter like got infected with it, and she had to go to this like really weird tribe in the middle of
mm,
nowhere, and stuff started getting weird and creepy, and it was like very, very different from I think what I've seen like as far as like
yeah,
tribal movies and whatnot. So
yeah,
um
yeah.
but yeah, very,
Wow.
very interesting.
Yeah, I think I've seen some. I'm from India, so I watch a lot of Indian movies as well.
Mm,
And this was, I think this was like an Indian movie and not really a
mm.
Bollywood one.
Oh,
So
okay.
they so like a much smaller production, and yeah, even budgets and stuff. But
Mm,
the core story is really good, and it's it is a horror movie, but the themes are like they talk about greed and like all these
Mm-hmm.
kind of like really subliminal topics that are not really horror, but
Mm-hmm.
they do it through the medium of horror, which is
Mm-hmm.
really 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 well done. Yeah, it's
Oh, that's cool.
extremely creepy with like the sound and atmosphere and lighting and all those kind of
Oh,
things.
that's awesome. We actually just
Yeah,
watched our first Bollywood movie this year because I've never watched it, and obviously, like, it's in my family. Like, I don't think anyone in my family's watched a Bollywood movie just because I'm not really around like that environment all the time. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But we watched it, and it was fantastic. Like, we were just it's called I don't know if you've heard of it, Singham. It's like this
Oh
cop who
yeah, yeah,
goes rogue, and it's so over the top, but it's so
yeah,
funny, and it's like, when we were watching it, it's you know obviously Bollywood movies have these like giant productions, and like
yeah.
everyone's dancing and people are singing, and me and my buddy just look at him like, is this what Bollywood movies are? Like, they just bring out the song in like the middle of like like the story. It's not
Yeah,
even like it
yeah,
didn't even segue. Everyone's just dancing and singing.
yeah,
But I'm like, that's really cool though. Like, that must have been really fun to go out and shoot because there's like
yeah,
hundreds and hundreds of actors. You know what I mean? And to
yeah.
make it all work it must take a lot.
Quite hard. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, absolutely. And what you're saying is like there's some of the bigger productions, like you
Hmm.
said, and there are obviously like smaller movies as well, the ones that are like completely grounded, focused on
Hmm.
stories and stuff. So yeah, it's obviously a good mix.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There has to be. You know what I mean? Everyone's
Yeah,
got different tastes, so you got to make something for everybody.
absolutely, absolutely. Awesome. We're coming close to time, but I'll give you 2 minutes to talk about your campaign and where
Yes,
should people
absolutely.
get it? Maybe the link in that ticker down below. But
Yeah,
but yeah, just talk about your campaign and pre-launch and stuff.
yeah, absolutely. So we have our pre-launch page that is up right now. We're getting really close to when we're going to be launching. I'll have more details soon about that when we know a specific date. You can find us on Global Comics. You can also find us on uh, comics.one.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Dot one.
Uh, yeah, you can find all our issues up there. If you like horror, you like action, you like drama, you like romance, you like anything that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat, I highly suggest picking up an issue of Raise. It's got something for everybody. We're really trying to push the zombie genre forward with this one and try to tell new, interesting stories. And if you are a fan of that, I highly suggest picking up an issue. And yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. And I do highly recommend reading the first 5 issues. As I said, it just gets
thank
better
you.
and better with every issue. And I'm super looking forward to the issue 6. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for taking time today and
you
come
are
on
very
the show.
no problem. No problem. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. No worries at all. And all the best for the campaign.
Thank you, man.